the deadliest food of all, and it's not sugar. Have you ever wondered why cardiovascular diseases are on the rise? Why are cancer rates increasing so dramatically? Why are so many people having heart attacks and strokes? We see the number of cases going up every day, even though we supposedly have all this technology, even though we're supposedly eating better, even though we're supposedly exercising more. What's happening to the world and what's happening to our diet? I'm going to tell you about an ingredient that we all use daily, found in sweet and savory dishes, sauces, and pretty much every preparation in your home and in restaurants. And why is it used? Because it's odorless, tasteless, and very cheap. But what are these ingredients? Folks, these ingredients, I want to know who can guess what these ingredients are that are in sweet dishes, that are in the savory dish, that are in the sauce, that are in the salad, that are in your home, that are in restaurants, that have no smell, no taste, and are very economical. Write your guess in the chat or comments so I can see if you're paying attention to these ingredients I'm about to mention. I won't keep you waiting. It's vegetable oils, folks. Vegetable oils are a modern invention that we shouldn't be consuming. Why? They've made us, me, you, believe that these vegetable oils were good for us. And I'll tell you where this idea came from, because you need to understand the history behind all of this and know how the industry manipulates the information that's passed on to doctors, to nutritionists, to the general public. This manipulation of information made us believe that soybean, canola, sunflower, cottonseed, and corn oils should be consumed, and that we should be very afraid of saturated fat, which is naturally present in coconut oil, butter, and other foods. So breast milk itself is rich in saturated fat, but you don't see babies having heart attacks left and right. Now, let's look at the risks of consuming these vegetable oils. We've talked many times about the risks of consuming sugar, which in high doses can act like a poison. And it's no different with these oils. The big problem, just like with sugar, is that we easily exceed the maximum daily amount we should be consuming. Of course, this doesn't mean you should never eat French fries or anything breaded ever again. In fact, it's fine to eat these things occasionally, and you can count me in because I love French fries and fried chicken. But ignoring the truth won't protect you from the problems that excessive consumption of these foods will bring. So ignoring it will only cause things to happen without you realizing why, and you'll end up blaming something else. So stick with me until the end, so we can see how this food is acting like the biggest poison in the modern world of nutrition. Now, to start off, there are currently three main causes of death. First, there are cardiovascular diseases like heart attacks and strokes. Second, cancer. And third, it varies depending on where you are. Sometimes it's accidents, sometimes it's medical errors. And these first two causes, cardiovascular diseases and cancer, they account for more than 70%. Two cases, two deaths, and the numbers keep rising. If we look throughout history, we'll see that cases have been increasing over time. But at a certain point, the cases began to increase dramatically, as if someone had pressed a button to activate a program that boosted the number of cases. So what happened at that moment? What caused these cases to increase? One significant factor, a very important event, was the change in dietary guidelines. And what did these new dietary guidelines say? They claimed that fat was bad, that dietary cholesterol was harmful, that saturated fat in food was detrimental, and they began recommending that we should consume larger quantities of carbohydrates and sugars, as well as increased amounts of vegetable oils, because vegetable oils don't contain cholesterol and have little saturated fat. But where did all this come from? It all started in 1829 when they realized that besides harvesting cotton for fabric, to do whatever needed to be done with the cotton, moreover, they could process cotton seeds in machines to obtain cottonseed oil that would be used to light lamps or as a lubricant. This was very positive because they turned something that would have been thrown away into a useful product. This happened in 1829. Around 1898, we started to use corn oil in cooking because they realized they could do with corn what they did with cotton seeds. But the key date was 1911 when Procter & Gamble a company everyone knows which makes beauty and personal care products, Procter & Gamble created crystallized cotton oil, which in English was called crystallized cotton oil, which they abbreviated to create the brand name Crisco. So this company, Procter & Gamble, which used to make soap and candles, now also starts producing food and investing in advertising and marketing to convince everyone that the fat we've used throughout our lives, like pork fat, beef fat, duck fat, egg yolks, lamb fat, and butter, wasn't actually the best option, and that everyone should switch to their vegetable fats, which were supposedly more efficient, cheaper, odorless, flavorless, and long-lasting. And we, as humans, allowed ourselves to be swayed by these advertisements. But interestingly, before 1900, cardiovascular diseases were much less common than they are today. Of course, back then, there wasn't as much medical literature, nor as many scientific articles or observational studies, and countries didn't communicate with each other to provide access to global statistics, but there also wasn't nearly as much cardiovascular disease as we see today, especially among young people. Nowadays, we see far more people with obesity, metabolic syndrome, hypertension, and diabetes, and this is directly related to what happened in the 1940s. By 1945, Crisco, the crystallized cottonseed oil, essentially hydrogenated cotton oil, had already become the primary source of vegetable oils in the United States. But in 1948, something truly astonishing happened, almost too incredible to believe. In 1948, Procter & Gamble shelled out a massive sum of money, equivalent to about $20 million in today's currency. They paid, donated, essentially handed it over to the American Heart Association, which is, as the name suggests, the American Association for Heart Health, comparable to something like the American College of Cardiology. With this influx of cash, the American Heart Association transformed from a small organization into a major player in the United States. Coincidence or not, following this substantial contribution from Procter & Gamble, the American Heart Association published its first manuals demonizing cholesterol and saturated fat in food. And from that point on, it became a frenzy. There were countless magazines, newspapers, and TV reports claiming that cholesterol and saturated fat were the main culprits behind cardiovascular diseases, and that it was better to consume polyunsaturated fatty acids rich in omega. Even butter became a villain. And I remember back then, do you recall when eggs were considered harmful? Because eggs are high in cholesterol and saturated fat, butter was also seen as a major villain. So folks, these foods came to be viewed as the bad guys. So what was the recommended alternative? To replace butter, for example, what did they do? They took oil, took fat, and hydrogenated it, transforming it from a liquid consistency to a paste-like texture. Since this fat had no taste or smell, they artificially added the desired flavor. It turns out that the process of hydrogenating fat created trans fat, which we now know is very harmful. So we are consuming much higher amounts of omega-6 than we should. Moreover, excessive consumption of these oils also increases calorie intake, which ultimately leads to overweight, obesity, and all the health problems that come with these conditions. Gradually, over the long term, these oils fuel the fire of cardiovascular diseases and increase your risk of developing them. And once again, the problem here is excessive consumption. There's nothing wrong with eating French fries once in a while. There's nothing wrong with ordering breaded chicken occasionally. But now, people eat these things every day. So this excessive consumption generates chronic inflammation, which increases the risk of cardiovascular disease, which will increase the risk of cancer, which will increase the risk of various health problems, including the risk of death. So folks, these oils should be avoided. In addition to avoiding these oils, if you want to protect yourself from all these diseases I've just mentioned, you should read my book, The Longevity Code, where I show you 100 habits to live past 100 years. These habits will help you control blood pressure, diabetes, cholesterol, anxiety, insomnia, alcoholism, and smoking without doctors, medications, or exams. If you want to have a healthier life with more energy, more vitality, and better quality of life, click now on the first link in the description or on the pinned comment and get your longevity code for just $29.90 in digital format, which is the only format available.